What's up, everyone? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Bucks to start the week. And Milwaukee are 2-0 to start the season, which is a pretty nice beginning to a regular season that we weren't sure how it was going to start. And we love it even more because the home opener was a lot of fun. And we got a Giannis special that was great for those of us that think that Giannis can average more than 30 points per game. So we're going to break down a dominant Giannis game against the Houston Rockets. And the Bucks now have a few days off, so we've got time to break this one down. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my other stuff over at ESPN. And alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. Of course, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen, particularly to start the week. And this is the first Monday of the regular season where you're coming off a big win on the weekend. So everyone's going to work. There's no other sports that they would want to watch on Sunday that could possibly bring them down. They're just purely focused on the Milwaukee Bucks, who are undefeated 2-0. And Frank, it doesn't get any better than this because we love it when the Bucks win, but we love it when the Bucks win. And on top of that, you get a classic Giannis performance. This was one of those games where, realistically, you could tell very early in the game that it was just the youngsters from Houston against the chiseled specimen that is Giannis, and they just couldn't do anything to slow this man down. 44 points on 21 shots. This was about as dominant as he can be, and he did it really by scoring everywhere, all over the place. It was all going for Giannis.
Yeah, it's the preseason. He only played twice. Admitted, right, that he didn't have the sharpness.
Didn't take long.
Didn't take long. Game one in Philly, as we talked about the other night, was really kind of just looking to facilitate more. It didn't seem like he was really looking to press the issue and attack. And again, I think Giannis in his old age now, right, year 10, ripe old age of 27. He's talked about obviously knowing that over the last year or two, right, kind of knowing that he can't just kind of physically dominate or try to, just throw his body into everything every night. But in this game, the Rockets have some, I think, defensive upside for sure. I think Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, two rookies that I think are going to be really good defenders. Mm-hmm. But those guys, among others, just got baptism by fire in this game. And you could tell Giannis was out there and he saw, fresh meat in front of him pretty much all night. And the attacking in transition, really didn't even have to look for his jump shot. And then, knocks on a couple threes, hits that, top of the key jumper early in the fourth quarter, which I think gave him 40 points as well. So just kind of, everything was working. He was always able to get to the paint, get to those short sweeping shots if he wasn't dunking or getting layups. And it was just, like you said, complete domination. And, these regular season games, obviously, it's great if we can read into something that has some sort of cosmic significance for the Bucks title pursuit. But the bottom line is right now, with the injuries they have, mostly, hey, just bank wins, right? While Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton are getting healthy. And, at first after this game, I was like, oh man, when's the next game? And I said, I got to wait till Wednesday for the next game. And at first I was like, oh man, I don't have to wait, 3 days to get to the next game. But then part of me is like, well, you know what? Let's just stretch out as many days as we can here, given the injuries. Chris and Pat both started the year, call it 3 weeks out-ish, maybe a little less. Who knows? Never know what might happen. So after I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Whatever. Like, let's kind of take it easy. Obviously, eventually the games are going to start coming kind of quickly because that's just how things go. But this was a game to say, great, took care of business, was never close, 13-0 to start the game. And basically they skunked them to start the game. Houston made some shots. I think they got within 12 at one point in the second half. But, it just felt like, all right, just throw the ball to Giannis and let him go and be a human battering ram. And, sure enough, just, again, 17 of 21, just absurd shot making from him. And nice to see some other guys as well. We can talk about Brook and Drew Holiday, I think in particular, guys that have Drew was nice to see him bounce back after the first game, the shooting struggles. Brook, meanwhile, continuing his strong play inside Saturday, since we're now on Sunday. But for the most part, yeah, just a game where I think, just great to have a home opener, get a win, and show your fans, what they already knew with Giannis, but just to reiterate his greatness and get to see him doing things that, I don't want to exaggerate, but some of the moves that he was making, especially that inside out, transition Euro step into a dunk over Jabari Smith with two guys hanging on him for the end one. I don't know who else makes that play. Just you expect Giannis to make that play. And I don't know how many guys have made that play once in NBA history, let alone done it with regularity. So just a game to sort of sit back and just say, all right, Giannis, let's appreciate this greatness. Let's savor just the chance to watch this guy do what he's capable of doing. And whether it's, a big game or not, it's just fun to watch. And if you love the Bucks, you love watching basketball, then you had to really enjoy the show that Giannis put on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you pointed to, the contrast from the game in Philadelphia, and we referenced the idea of Giannis understanding that he's going to need other guys to be involved, particularly early in the season with these players out. There was also the fact that he was being defended by PJ Tucker, and then Joel Embiid would have been waiting for him in the paint as well. So it was just a completely different scenario. But I think that we have seen Giannis over the years have a pretty clear understanding of what teams just literally have absolutely nothing for him. And, he does like to feast in those situations. And he's like, hey, this is a night where I can score 40, potentially 50. And he would have scored 50 plus if he had to play anywhere near decent minutes in this game, because that's the other point. You talk about the 44 points and everything he did, but he did that in 27 minutes and 38 seconds. So, it's just absolutely insane. Let's talk about the tech foul, though. Let's get to this. Let's get to the point. Because, by the way, I woke up here in Australia and I see Frank's outed me for something I said in the DM. And this tweet is doing humongous numbers. So everyone understands that in a DM I said that Giannis did something sexy on the basketball court. So let's just...
No one's going to disagree with that.
I know.
It was a great way to frame it. I had to let the people know.
So he had another Euro step finish where he laid it in. There was contact there. Beautiful stuff. And he kind of just, and when you really watch this celebration in slow-mo, you really get to take it all in, what he was doing with this celebration. He kind of like flicked the hips. He's like, obviously, doing the and one signal, smile on his face. And he got a tech foul for that. And so I messaged that DM, and one of Mitchell Maurer said, what did Giannis just get a tech for? And I said, he got a tech foul for being too sexy with his and one signal. And let's be real, though. As funny as that is, and as ridiculous as that is, the officials just need to chill out. Just back off. Like, what is going on?
I don't know. We found out today it was rescinded. The technical was rescinded. So order was restored. Obviously, if that was a close game and, a technical foul actually matters in terms of like the score, that would have been very annoying. But yeah, it was, I don't know. It was definitely kind of unique because normally when Giannis makes big plays, we saw him kind of mean mug flex at a couple of times in this game. Yeah. This one was a much more kind of playful thing because the game was out of reach, and it was more just like Tari Eason kind of dove at the ball a little bit, and but I don't know if we've ever really. I feel like the term the Euro step, like the GYRO step, term, we kind of throw around a lot. I will still claim to be the first user of that. I used it in his second preseason game in 2013. That's my claim. I haven't filed a trademark claim on it, but to me, the true Giannis Euro step is the EURO step, right? Where you take a step to one side of the defender, and then you step to the other, mixed with bringing the ball over the defender's head, right? Which is exactly what he did to Tari Eason. Tari Eason kind of gambles, and you're thinking he should be going to sort of his right and just try to swoop around him. Instead, he kind of wrong foots and then brings the ball over. I mean, the way he does this, it's like somebody playing with their, little kid brother on a Nerf hoop or something like that. Like the fact that he can just bring the ball over the guy's head and, not nail them in the face and get over them. Not, no one ever pokes the ball away when he does this. Is just incredible. And so, I don't know, just the way he can contort his body and the length of the strides and the coordination and close control is just amazing. So yeah, it was just another one of those games where it's just like, it's just like, wait a minute, how did, like, you take a snap of the picture where he is, and then you take a snap of where he ends up, basically like completely, by himself at the rim half a second later. It's just, I don't know. There were probably 4 or 5 moments in that game on Saturday night where I just sort of started like cackling with laughter. I'm watching the game by myself in my living room, and my wife and daughter were in the other room. Must have just like been like, "What's going on in there?" Just like stupid stuff. Giannis is doing. Yeah, they know Giannis. So, but yeah, it was just one of those games, and we try not to take Giannis for granted, and this is definitely one of those don't take Giannis for granted types of podcasts.
All right, don't take Prize Picks for granted either. And Giannis had 44 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists in this game. Didn't even have a block, though. That's honestly just embarrassing.
Well, he had the weird part was he really had the block. You remember he had that block in the first quarter, but the officials ruled that Drew tied up the guy as he was going up, and then the guy pulled back immediately, and then Giannis totally snuffed out the shot. To me, that should have been a Giannis block and no jump ball. It was just a very bizarre thing. Drew had 3 blocks, and that was one of them. But again, just, those damn Milwaukee scorekeepers just screwing Giannis out of more blocks. Although at least Drew got credited for one. But anyway, don't get me started.
No, you stay on that. And I'll stay on Prize Picks. And for those people that don't know how Prize Picks work, you just have to pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And it doesn't have to be points, I should say, by the way. There's assists, rebounds, whatever the projections are there. If you think you know what a player is going to do in a particular matchup, maybe you like individually who you think they're going to be playing against one-on-one, you can check it all out at prizepicks.com. It's pretty fun just to at least have a scroll through there. So there's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And if you want to test out your knowledge in other sports, you can do that as well. NFL, MLB, nearly done, but you can still jump on board there. NHL, golf as well. I don't actually know what they would have for golf. Birdies, those types of things. That's probably how they look at it. So you can do that. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. The withdrawals are safe and fast, I should say. And currently, Prize Picks is operational in over 30 states. And Canada as well. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. So they'll match that up to $100. So don't forget to use the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com. I'll also mention Game to Game. This is a new show on the Locked On Network. There's endless shows on the Locked On Network, but Game to Game can be your second listen. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So I have a humongous question to ask you, Frank, and part of the reason why we took 24 hours to do this podcast was because I think we wanted to let this game settle a little bit and not come with any real hot takes for the people. Occasionally, it's okay to throw a hot take out there, but sometimes you want to just sit on it a little bit and not get yourself in trouble here on the podcast. So my question for you, is Jevon Carter washed? Why is this man missing shots? I don't even know who I'm looking at out on the floor. Jevon Carter started in this game. And, of course, I'm joking. By the way, Jevon Carter looked very engaged defensively with some of the plays on Jalen Green. He had a really cool steal on an inbounds pass after he was talking a whole bunch of trash. They were going at each other. So he still did some nice things in this game. But it is honestly just bizarre to see him missing shots, particularly because some of these misses were absolutely wide open. So he still played the 25 minutes, but he was scoreless there. A couple of steals and 4 assists, but Jevon Carter missing shots. What a world.
I mean, probably my bigger concern is some of his turnovers. Obviously, it's not like he's having to carry a heavy offensive load here, but he had a couple of pretty careless ones in the first half in Philly on opening night. Has 3 turnovers on Saturday night. So I think, honestly, the shots, whatever. Like, you live with the 56% 3-point shooting last year after he comes over, and then you got to accept that he's actually occasionally gonna miss some shots. Hopefully, it settles into, I don't know, high 30s, right? I think he's 1 for 5 so far from 3-point range this year. So we'll see. I'm less worried about that, but it's interesting that he's been starting. I think obviously from a fit standpoint with Pat and Chris out, now that Wes has a couple games under his belt, the obvious move would be to start Wes, right? Just from like a balance perspective. But, I guess the counter argument would be, well, we like, basically having Jevon to kind of annoy opponent ball handlers and maybe be a bit more of that like pressure guard against the point guards. I think the Brooklyn game coming up is going to be interesting just because that's a game where you've got KD, and as we saw in the end of the preseason, if Drew is your 3 effectively, then, I mean, again, KD has kind of a size advantage against most everyone he plays against on the perimeter, but as good as Drew is, and, we know KD respects Drew, but he obviously can get his shot off over Drew pretty easily. So, Wes Matthews, who we've seen last year in the regular season defend KD very respectably, again, just seems like the obvious guy to start in a game like that. And again, not just for the Nets, but just in general, right? He's obviously a much more natural fit into that lineup versus going small where you're basically having 3 guards between Drew Grayson and Jevon Carter. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think Bud is necessarily obviously the type to really change his lineup game to game based on matchups. But the flip side is, it's like, well, it's not like Jevon Carter starting at point guard is some long-term, that's how we want to play in the playoffs. So let's, we got to do it now. Right. So that's probably the one thing I am a bit curious about, why not start Wes in that scenario? Because we know if a game is close, as we saw in Philly, you're going to want Wes closing out and being part of that closing group. So again, is it just concern about starting him kind of ramps up his minutes further than you like? I don't know. We'll see. So, but yes, Jevon Carter actually missing some shots, being human. Very disappointing. But George Hill actually has been making shots, and
the plus minus king is back.
The plus minus king. He hit 3 out of 4, 9 points, 6 assists, no turnovers, plus 20 on Saturday night. And I mean, if Jevon and George Hill can both be playing well and pushing the others for minutes. Obviously right now they're both playing because of the injuries, but it's a good spot to be in. And George just, physically looks fine. I think that's the biggest takeaway. And when we talk about what we take from these games, I think obviously just sort of like, hey, bank a win, great. Appreciate Giannis's greatness. Great. That's fun. And then I think the other piece is just some of the veterans in particular, or guys coming off injuries or young guys, just seeing guys get reps and just seeing where they are. That's the other thing that, I will allow myself to do in these types of games. So certainly George and Brook Lopez were kind of, a couple of the obvious guys just given their age, and George coming off the injury that, I think we're all curious to see what they have left in the tank. Brook, obviously, I think looked pretty good coming back from the back injury last year, but, 34 years of age, never exactly fleet of foot. I think we're all curious to see what, at some point, Brook has to slow down to the point that, he's going to be less effective. But I mean, he's been great defensively these first couple of games. I mean, just some of the rim protection on Saturday night. I think did he have 5 blocks on Saturday night? I mean, and some of the blocks he's getting are just, those are like serious, rim protection blocks. And obviously Houston is an athletic team. They've got guys that can get to the rim and finish. And so, he just looked really good. And 9 points, 3 out of 6 from 3, 3 out of 7 overall. So that 3-point shot continues to look pretty solid, 4 out of 12 on opening night. So, the 3-point shooting has been, a little bit down the past few years. Although, realistically, he was never like a high 30s guy or anything like that anyway, consistently. So maybe it was a little bit overrated in terms of the 3-point shooting, but hopefully they keep going in. And defensively, I think just great to see him looking spry, and to the extent he can continue to do this, obviously it just bodes well. And you just kind of say, all right, let's just make sure we take care of his body. He played 29 minutes on Saturday night, and I think we were obviously coming into the year a little interested to see how Bud would kind of manage his minutes, and would he, ramp him down a little bit. But 31 minutes on opening night, which makes a little more sense because you're playing Joel Embiid and he's the obvious guy to defend him. But against the Rockets, another night where he plays 29 minutes, certainly they're leaning into him. And, part of that as well may be just reflective of the trickle down, even though Chris and Pat obviously are not centers. They're not taking backup minutes for Brook or something. But you know how it is, right? Like, you lose a couple of big minute guys. All the regular rotation guys kind of tend to have to make up for a little bit. So, it'd be nice to see Brook's minutes come down a little bit more as the season wears on, just from a maintenance perspective. But, let's not bury the lead here. He's looked really good, and just, Brook always is one of the more fun guys to root for, right? Just what he brings to this team on and off the court, the kind of person he is, and obviously what he's done, in particular on the floor, and being such a big part of that championship team. He's obviously a guy that, we're going to hope that he's got another at least couple of good years left in him. And obviously this one's off to a strong start.
And 3 days off. Plenty of time to put the feet up. He's now engaged as well.
Cross his legs, maybe cross his legs on the bench on a chair and sit there a little bit like he is apt to do. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, he's got plenty of time to do that. And just quickly a note on West. So, I think what we'll find out on this game against Brooklyn, and it's projecting ahead, we've got plenty of time to talk about the Nets, but I think what we'll find out is whether West is, and I say this again because you've had the whole week since opening night, you have all these days off, so presumably he's fresh. He played 20 minutes against Philadelphia, so he's fine. So I think we'll find out whether Bud has plans to start West moving forward, or he's just going to be a bench guy, because he only played 12 minutes against Houston. I assume they just didn't see any need to really play him. So the matchups make sense. Brooklyn, obviously a bigger team. So if he comes off the bench, maybe that's just the way they're going to roll until Chris, comes back and slots in, and presumably we'll take Jevon Carter's spot there, and then Grayson Allen will slide down. But we'll see. I'll be interested to see what happens there. And I'm also very interested in our friends at BetOnline, because if you go to BetOnline, they actually have odds on who's going to be the first player to score 50 points in the regular season. And I was watching this game yesterday, and I was thinking it's going to be Giannis. Giannis is going to do it. We've had a 40-plus point game from Giannis. We had a 40-plus point game from Joel Embiid, Paul George as well. So there's been a few players that have been flirting with the 50, but unless I've missed it while we're recording today, I don't think anyone's cracked 50 yet this season. But you can find those odds and much more at betonline.net, which, as we know, has been supporting this podcast for a long time. And football season's rolling as well. The baseball getting to the real final stages there as well. So BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. So 2-0, obviously you take it. And you already made the reference we love. Just bank the wins, particularly early in the season when you got players out. I would say, based on what we've seen from Philadelphia, maybe the opening night win wasn't an all-time classic with the way the Sixers are looking. They lost at home to the Spurs a couple of days after, but nonetheless, you do have to just keep winning. So I'm sure that they'll be very glad with the players that got out to continue those minutes. But what about the NBA debut of MarJon Beauchamp and AJ Green? So then he snuck in at the end of the game here. What do you reckon? Because I was curious, because I was watching Beauchamp specifically. So they played the last 2 minutes and 14 seconds. And I was thinking to myself, some of the crowds filed out. It's opening night, but this game's lost its luster a long time ago. And that's your first minutes as an NBA player. Do you think it's a letdown, or are you still just anxious and nervous and excited?
Oh, I'm sure they're just super excited and probably excited
I hope
as well
so.
that they get to come into, a blowout win, right? So the vibes are good and the bench is going to be excited. It's not like you're coming in down 20 and, it's just going to be a crappy locker room afterwards. So no, I'm sure for those guys, I mean, just seeing your first court time, whether it's 10 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever, is probably just, I mean, it's a dream come true for those guys, right? So I think from MarJon, obviously being able to look for a shot right away and had a very nice finish with his left hand going to the basket. Not that we are going to read a ton into that. Great to see anybody like him finishing with his offhand. I don't think that was something we necessarily saw a lot on sort of the highlights of him last year in the G League, and probably more importantly, just we talked about him and kind of some of the butterflies he seemed to have in his first couple preseason games. So just kind of getting off the mark here in the NBA, getting his first basket. Again, we'll see the next time he plays. Is he actually going to be playing any minutes where the game is in doubt? In the near future, maybe not, right? But you never know. I mean, you're one injury away from some of these guys that you don't expect to play having to kind of step up a bit. And Jordan Nwora obviously has gotten a decent amount of run here in these first couple of games. But yeah, so congrats to MarJon, just kind of getting that out of the way, and kind of we'll see what happens next. Nwora, I think, has hit some spot up threes in these first couple games, which has been encouraging because that's was the thing. He's never been, the first 2 years here, has always been better off the bounce than off the catch shooting threes, which really isn't the skill set you're looking for in kind of a complementary type player necessarily. Again, not that being able to cook at times isn't valuable, but I think the problem with him is just sometimes the way he sometimes hesitates on the ball. And then, I mean, he had a shot that he made I think in the fourth quarter of this game where he kind of, caught it, hesitated. And it's just kind of like, all right, really you kind of want a normal guy to kind of make a decision, pass it or make a move, take a shot, whatever. And kind of wasting a little bit of time with the ball and then hits a, tough step back jumper. And it's like, okay, like, we know you can do that, but it's had just a couple plays also where he just like fumbled the ball off catch, things like that. So, he's getting some opportunities here. Probably will get continued opportunities at least until Pat or Chris come back. So I think it's just a matter of, he's got to make the most of it because obviously these past couple of years just hasn't shown enough to Bud and the coaching staff to be a guy that, is going to be trusted in the playoffs for sure. But as we have also pointed out, I mean, he played 1,200 minutes last year. He got a ton of run a year ago, and the numbers really weren't altogether impressive, especially the efficiency numbers. So that's, to me, the big question this year is, can he become a shot maker that actually makes shots? Because last year he just didn't make enough shots to really be particularly valuable. And then obviously there's the defensive questions and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll assume that we'll probably see a little bit more Jordan Nwora, and hopefully we see the version of Jordan Nwora on Wednesday that we saw in the home opener against the Nets a year ago, when he hit some shots and blocked Kevin Durant tagging the basket. But we'll just sort of see what we get from Jordan. I'm not holding my breath on that, but he'll continue to get some opportunities, it looks like.
Yeah, I think we could have projected it a little bit based on what Bud said, that one of the two between MarJon and Jordan Nwora were going to get minutes. And I guess we kind of predicted that Jordan might be the one. So we'll see how that plays out over the next week or so until, at least Pat comes back into the lineup, and we'll wait and see what happens with Chris Middleton. One final note I wanted to bring up before we wrap this up. Great to have Marcus and Lisa back on the TV, and Melanie on the sidelines, we should say as well. But they're no longer courtside. I messaged Eric and I said, where's Marcus? I can't see those guys courtside anymore. So I guess they've moved up to the top of the lower bowl. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they're making some more money on those seats down there, I guess. But in classic Marcus form, I was cracking up I guess their producer or someone they know was sitting courtside, and Marcus was like, "Oh, looks like he's got some pretty nice seats there. I used to sit in those seats," and which I just thought was a classic line. And I don't know. Hopefully, they can see okay up there, and it's not detracting from their job. But keep the announcers courtside. Come on, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think it's especially surprising because I mean, it's like one thing if I think at various points, right? Like in a lot of arenas, like the press area has been moved, right? But that's where you're talking about like a larger group of people, and they're literally sitting in parts of the stands where fans could sit. So I don't, I won't pretend to know what the dynamics are with, are they selling tickets to these seats that normally you associate with the broadcasters and the official scorers sitting in? I don't know. But I think if anybody was going to get, those types of seats, I would say give it to the broadcasters, because I want them being able to hear what's being said on the court between the players, between the referees, when there's referee decisions and things like that. I mean, I would like my game crew to be close to what's happening on the floor. So I don't know. We'll see. Are we going to notice demonstrably an impact on the broadcast? Maybe not, but it just seems like allowing your crew to be closer to the action would be better. Flip side, maybe you can see some things when you're a little higher up that you don't see when you're sitting right there courtside. Some of the depth stuff, maybe you can see easier a little higher up, but so it goes. So,
well, I'll see definitely less of Mike Budenholzer's backside. That's for damn sure, as he oftentimes would have been standing in front of him. They won't have Brook Lopez's little dinosaur on the desk with them, so there's a few things they'll miss, I'm sure about that. But we've got a couple of days to talk about this game leading up to the Brooklyn Nets. That is game 3 of the regular season, 2-0 at the moment. The Bucks are, and as I said at the top, I always say this: thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you go and do so, particularly on YouTube, and make sure you comment. I had a few people, Frank, you'll be pleased to know, commenting on my white T-shirt the other day in the podcast, which you'll be pleased to know I'm back again wearing a white T-shirt, and I did wash it, just so anyone has any.
Has Joe Ingles reached out yet?
Well, not yet, but I saw he had a black T-shirt on, so I got to do that for tomorrow's podcast now, just so he knows. I'm keeping up with the trends there with Joey Boy. And make sure also you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Gee whiz. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's call it a podcast. Yeah, we got an unusual. I feel like the league's making up. They're like, look, we know we made you travel internationally. We made you play a back-to-back in the preseason. So have 3 days off in the regular season, guys. Well, this is your payback for that ridiculous preseason schedule you had. But anyway, we'll find things to talk about. I believe Camille, she doesn't know it yet. I'm going to see if she can podcast tomorrow. So, Camille, if you're listening, let me know.
The Camille bat signal is up.
That's exactly right. I got to be better with that.
She has to, because you don't even put this at the beginning of the pod. Like you make her, she has to listen till the very end when we're just like droning on about useless crap to hear that you need her on the pod. So
yeah,
you don't deserve her, clearly.
Well, I mean, that's obvious, but
yeah.
When I've done this in the past, she's listened. So this is just a test of her commitment to Locked On Bucks. All right, let's wrap it up. Frank and myself, enjoy the start to the week. Speak to you guys tomorrow.